Alright, welcome back to Mexicali Fish Keeper. I'm out here in my fish room today, and I'm looking at my tanks, and there's one in particular that I've kind of started scaping at one point, but just kind of left it halfway through. And I think today I'm going to go ahead and dedicate the time that I need to it. I'm going to go ahead and complete it and probably rescape it a little bit different. And I'll show you what it is that I'm going to do and what I'm going to keep in there. So let me go ahead and turn you around so I can show you. Okay, the tank I'm going to be working on today is this 33 gallon cube. One of the things that I want to do to this is I want to be able to add a background to it, because I don't like being able to see all the way and see all those cables. And when I did it, originally this is where I was keeping these goldfish in there when they were smaller. But after that, I just kind of let it on its be, and I threw a plant in there, but I never really put a lot of effort behind it. Currently in there I have a gourami and some mollies, and I've been throwing in there some of the baby cories that have gotten too big for that 10-gallon tank, so they're in there. But I think what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go ahead and properly scape this, or at least to my liking. And I'm going to go ahead and make this, I guess my platy tank. I mean, not my platy, my molly tank. And I have some other ones that I'm keeping in quarantine. They've been in here for about a month now. So I'm going to move these guys over and set this up for their tank. So if you want to come along and see what it is that I end up doing, then stick around and I'll show you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and start draining this out. So I can lower the water level and be able to pull those fish out. And then I got to figure out exactly how I want to escape this. But for the time being, that's what I'm going to do, is go ahead and lower that water level, make it a lot easier to capture these guys. So I'll show you what it looks like once I've got everything out of there. So I've got all that water out of there. I just got to fish a couple of these guys out. And once I have all that done, I'll be ready to put the background on here and then start deciding how I'm going to escape this. So let me go ahead and pull these guys out of here and put them in a container, and I'll get back to this. So it took me a little bit to get them all out of there. I think I've got everybody out that I needed to get out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put that background on there. And in the process of doing that, I was trying to figure out what I was going to use for a filter system. I know I had a hang on the back here, but I really am trying to go to all air. And I do have that air line running in the back where I have a drop line that I can run into this. And at first I thought I was going to do a sponge filter. That's still not out of the question, but rummaging through my storage bin where I have all these extra parts, I didn't realize I had an extra under gravel filter. So maybe I'm going to do a combination of both. I'm going to set up an under gravel filter for this, put it off in the corner or in the middle, I'm not sure yet, and maybe drop another line for a sponge filter if I feel that I need one. So that's probably what I'm going to go with. I have it, might as well use it. So I'll show you. I'm going to go ahead and remove some of that gravel out of there, and I'll show you how I'm going to do this with this. I'm going to go ahead and start moving all this gravel out of the way so that I can make room for that under gravel filter. I don't know if I'm going to keep this black substrate. I do have a bunch of that substrate that I picked out from the washes out here, and I do like that look. So this might not even stay in here, or maybe I'll use it just to build up height like I do with some of the other stuff, but I'm still not totally decided on that. So let me go ahead and finish pushing back all this, make room for that under gravel filter, and I'll show you what it's going to look like. Well, now that I got the rest of that water out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and rotate this tank so that I can get to the back side of it and go ahead and put on that that background that I wanted to install on this. And you guys can see how I do that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wipe the backside of this. I'm going to add some water to it. Wipe it down, give it a really good cleaning so that surface is nice and clean, and the film will be able to stick to it. And I'll show you how I apply the film to the backside of this. So the backside is clean, but as you can see, there's still some gunk on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and take a razor blade, and I'm going to take advantage of the fact that it's empty, and I'm going to scrape off all that algae that has been growing on the sides of the glass. Usually I only clean the front of my viewing panel when I have all my tanks set up. I don't care about algae on the sides. But since I already got it without water, and you know, I'm doing this, might as well make it a fresh start. So I'll show you what it looks like once it's been cleaned up. Just to show you guys real quick, one of the things that I do to try to get those hard water stains, I just take a razor blade and scrape the sides of it, and it seems to come off fairly easy and quick. And I'll take the same blade and use it to clean out any of that hair algae that's stuck, not hair algae, but the algae on the glass that's on there, and it should be able to scrape it off. Just figured I'd share how I do this to get these tanks cleaned out. Alright, so I finished scraping most of that hard water off of it and got it relatively clean. One of the things that I do want to caution you with, if you only have one tank and you're going to be doing any changes to it, I wouldn't recommend doing what I did by cleaning off all the side glasses, because some of your beneficial bacteria colonizes the surfaces of your tank, and you know, you would be decimating your beneficial bacteria. Even though there's some in the some of that beneficial bacteria in the gravel and stuff like that, you know, I wouldn't recommend you wiping down the insides of your glass or leaving them without water for very long. Only reason I'm not concerned is because I tend to keep extra filters that are being cycled. For example, I have these in here, and each one of these tanks up here has dual sponge filters in there, and I have one that's currently cycling in there, and I have different sizes throughout my fish room. So I'm not worried about it, because what I'm going to do is just take one of those already cycled filters and put it in here. I wouldn't say it instantly cycles the tank, but it does help accelerate the process. And by doing that, what happens is it's going to allow it to be able to have fish in there and give the beneficial bacteria time to you know, colonize this tank. So that's just a little bit of word of caution for any of you that are thinking about rescaping a tank that you might have. If that's the only tank you have, make sure you have extra media to be able to replace what you're taking out of that beneficial bacteria. Well, here's the frosting film that I'm going to use. As you can see, this is 48 inches wide, and my tank obviously it's not that long. So what I'll do is I'll take it and line it up with the edge of the aquarium. I don't care if it has a little bit of excess on the sides, just because I'm going to be able to use a razor blade and even out the edges. And what I'll do is I'll give it a little bit more than needed to get it to the bottom, because again, I could trim that excess off relatively easy, and I don't want to be, I'd rather be on the excess and not have enough material. So what I just do, I put the film on the top, drape it down, and roughly do a cut. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right along here and then cut off over the top, and that's how I'll get my piece. So I'll go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what it looks like once I've cut out that piece. Alright, so as you can see, I've already cut out the piece. I purposely left it with a little bit of excess. Like I said, that can be easily trimmed off with a razor blade once it's already on there. I just kind of wanted to show you guys that. And one of the things now that I want to make sure is that the surfaces of this paper that I'm going to put on there is clean. You don't want to have any type of debris, because it'll create little air pockets in the back once you go to put it on. As I can see, I have a little bit of debris there. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe this down on both sides. Make sure there's nothing on there. That's very important, or else you're going to get little bubbles in the back of this. So let me go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how I'm going to adhere this to the side to that glass. Okay, so I already wiped down both of these sides. So now what I'm going to do, and the way I learned how to do this was actually watching MD fish tanks. he has a really good video, an instructional on how to adhere these to the back side of your tanks, whether it's the frosted type or if you're using tin. But the general idea is you want to get the actual front side of the paper wet, and then you're gonna flip it around where the glue is gonna be on, and you want to get that also wet with some soapy water, and then you go ahead and peel it off, because it's gonna make it real easy to peel off that film that protects the tackness of the paper without it having curl up on you. Because if you go to do that without having it stuck somewhere, this paper is going to want to tend to curl back up into a roll, and that helps you prevent that. Helps you set up the back side so that the glue side, so that you can just flip it around and stick it right onto the glass without any issues. So if you want to see how that's done, I recommend you watch his video, or one of my previous videos where I set up the competition tank, the tank challenge. You can see there step by step how to go ahead and do this. So I'll just show you what it's going to look like once I get this film transferred onto the glass, and then show you how I trim it. Alright, so the idea behind this is you want to get this stuck on a surface where you're going to be able to prep it. What I ended up doing, the rough side of this paper is the back side of it, and the shiny glossy side is where you have that film. That's a protective film, which protects that glue, I guess, for lack of a better term, that's going to be on there. Once you have it set up in here and you remove that film, you want to get that surface really soaked down with some of that soapy water, because that's what's going to help you set it up and get it stuck to that front of that glass. So once you got it, all that in there, what I'm going to do is just turn around, flip it over, and be able to start getting the air bubbles out of there. So let me go ahead and do that before this dries out. So I've already flipped over the paper. Like I said, I purposely leave these extra edges because I'll show you how I trim these in a minute. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a card, any straight edge that you have, and you're going to start working it and starting to remove all those air bubbles in there. That's what you want to start doing. I usually like start from the top and work down. Kind of like what I'm doing here, and the purpose of this is to remove any air that's trapped between the paper and the glass surface. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do that, and I'll show you what it's supposed to look like once you've removed all the air bubbles and before I start trimming it. Okay, so what you're looking for is making sure you don't have any little pockets of air in this area here, and that's why you use that straight edge to try to smooth all of this out. I do have a little bit down here, and that's just because it's overlapping. So once I trim this right along here, I would be able to remove that excess water, and then the rest of that film will stick on there. So let me go ahead and do that now. What I like to use to trim the edges is a single blade razor. And I usually use a new one because the edges will be real sharp, making it much easier just to go ahead and run it through there and cut that. And then on the top, you're going to use the actual glass to be your guide as you cut down and over the top. So let me go ahead and do that. I'll show you what it looks like once it's all been trimmed off and you get that final look that you're looking for. So it's just a single edge razor blade. That's what I'm going to use. All right, just real quick, show you that I've already trimmed this side off of here. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that side and the top and the sides. Okay, you can see I've already trimmed it off of here, off of the top. The only thing left over is this side over here. Let me see if I can set this up so that I can show you how to do it, how I do it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that razor blade, tuck it in right on the glass, and then I just like to use that as my guide. So I just slide it right down the edge of the glass, all the way down. And there you go, perfect edge. Well, there you have it. I've trimmed off all the excess off of it. Now I've got this frosted so that you can't see those cables hanging out in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and place this up there again and start prepping it to start scaping this. So let me go ahead and get it up there. Okay, so I've got it back up in its place where it's going to go. You can still sort of see the cables back there, but it's not as much as you could see before. So now I'm going to go ahead and put my under gravel filter that I'm going to use for filtration, and lay down the gravel and start figuring out what I'm going to escape this with. So let me go ahead and install that under gravel filter. So I've got this in there. I set the under gravel filter on there again, and I put that quilting or that needle point mesh on there to keep some of that finer gravel from going down to the bottom of that under gravel filter. I don't know if you can really call this a plenum or not, just because I don't know if it's enough area to consider that. I'm just going to treat this as an under gravel filter and go on with that. And so let me go ahead and start adding my substrate on here, and I'll show you what that looks like once it's done. Alright, one of the things that I think I'm going to do is I've got this soil here left over from when I had that outdoor tub with the Aphenias mentals in there. I think I'm going to use some of this in that tank because I do want to plant it, and it'll provide me with some nutrients that I'm going to need in there. I do have to kind of sift through this because there's a lot of big particles that I don't want. So I'll go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you what I'm left over with. I'm going to use this colander here to try to sift some of this like branches and stuff that are in here, because I want this to be a little bit finer. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll show you what I'm left over with. Okay, this is exactly what I was trying to separate. As you can see, because it is some of that organic potting soil, it does come with a lot of little pieces of wood and stuff like that, which outside I didn't mind, because the whole purpose of this was to try to have a natural tub out there, and if it released some tannins, I didn't really care. So this was actually growing a bunch of the jungle val that I have in my tanks. But this is more what I'm after. It's a little bit more fine. It still has some of that soil in there, and it's enough to where I'm still going to be able to grow a plant. So it's not a totally inert substrate, and that's what I'm after. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit more to make sure that I have enough for the bottom of that aquarium. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so now that I've taken this and sorted it out, and I'm left with this, what I want to do, because this is kind of fine, I want to incorporate some gravel that I have here into this to try to keep it from compacting once I start using it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to add more of this type of stuff in there to prevent that from happening, from preventing compacting, and also it'll make the roots, it'll give the roots an area where they can grow a lot, stretch out a lot easier. So I'm going to try to add a little bit more of that from there, and I'll show you what that's going to look like when it's all said and done. So the way I do that, I have this this mesh here. It's a little bit more coarse than that colander, and it's real simple. All I do is take a scoop out of this, put it over the top. Whatever doesn't go down, I just get rid of, and that's what I'm left over with, the smaller stuff. So I'm going to continue to do that until I have the amount that I need, and I'll show you when it's all done. All right, so that's what I'm looking for, is that consistency there. It's just enough gravel in there that is going to prevent this from compacting down and you know, killing the roots, because I know some people say that sand will kill the roots, but to be honest, I've grown jungle val and just nothing but sand. But you know, I'm always looking to improve. One of the ways that I have improved while doing this is I used to do that whole 2 inches of potting soil on the bottom of the tank and then capping it off. And even though it does grow plants, and this tank right here is exactly that, I did have a lot of issues with algae for a long time, and I kept fighting it and couldn't figure out what it was. And I guess there is something to the fact that some of these nutrients will leach into the water column and create an algae problem. So my fix to that, instead of using the 2 inches, I tend to mix it And then this way I have a lot less of that potting soil, and it's worked really good for me. As a matter of fact, that tank right there is exactly that. And I really haven't had a whole lot of issues with algae in there. So it's kind of alleviated some of those issues. So that's why I do it this way. It works for me. Just because it works for me doesn't mean it'll work for everybody. So if you're looking for another option or willing to try something different, give this a try. See how it works out for you. So let me go ahead and take this stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting my substrate into that tank. All right, so I've already added what's going to be my nutrient soil to the inside of this tank. Put it all towards the back. Let me get you guys to see what it looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and cap this off now. I'm going to use pull filter sand to go ahead and cap it. So I'll show you what that's going to look like once I have the cap on it. All right, so as you can see, I've already capped everything off. Now I got to start seeing what kind of hardscape I'm going to use. I'm going to use some rocks that I have, but I'm not sure exactly if I'm using the ones that are already in there or going with a whole new different scheme. So let me go ahead and pick them out, and I'll start showing you when I put them in there. All right, so that's going to be the hardscape. At least the bigger rocks that I'm going to put in there. I still need to put all the fines, the details and stuff like that. I think I'm going to go ahead and start planting this, and then finish it off with all the little gravel that I usually put in there. So just kind of want to give you guys a glimpse of what it's looking like. Okay, so I started adding some of the plants in here. I still have a long ways to go, so let me get going and I'll show you what it looks like once I've got most of those plants in there. So okay, I'm done putting the plants that I'm going to put in there and finishing it up. You really can't take and appreciate it right now too much, just because the water is a little cloudy, and that's expected, especially because I don't clean my substrate. I just pour it in there directly, give it a few hours, it'll settle down. If it doesn't, then I'll just do a water change. Simple as that. But that's gonna be in. I've put some rotala on this side of the tank. I've got some duckweed right in, not duckweed, pearlweed. And my goal with this is I'm going to keep trimming it, and hopefully it'll carpet the front of this. I also put some in the back. You can't really make it out, but it's back there. And that one I'm going to let grow tall. I've got a little Amazon sword that I got off of my mother plant that's in here, and it sprouted that out on a shoot. I got some Hydrophilia gustifolia in the back. Little bit of jungle val, just because I want it looked kind of vacant in there, but if I'm not careful, that's going to take over the whole tank, so I really got to be cutting it back. But that's pretty much it for right now. Now it's just a matter of fact, it's just a matter of the tank to settle down and let the filters do what they need to do. I'm going to give it about an hour. I'll come back and look at it, and then I'll see if I'll put the fish in there. And so that's where I'm at. As you can see, the tank has cleared up really nice. It's got a little bit of tannins because I did put a little bit of driftwood in there, as you guys can see there. And I already got the fish in here. I'm going to put my mollies in here. I still need to move over the ones that I have in quarantine. But just wanted to kind of give you guys a look as to the outcome of all the hardscaping and what it's going to look like. So I still have those plants. I got to give it time, let those plants grow in. As they grow in, it'll start looking a little bit better. I know it looks kind of sparse right now, but you know, patience is a virtue, I guess. So, well, thank you very much for following me here, and hopefully you guys enjoy this thing.